Symbols are everywhere, right? They pack a ton of meaning into a simple image. But what happens when someone takes a symbol and deliberately twists it into something ugly, something hateful? Well, today we're going to dig into how some of history's most powerful emblems got hijacked and poisoned to become icons of hate. Let's get into it. And really, this is the big question. How can something that means peace and good fortune for literally thousands of years get turned into the most recognized symbol of terror on the planet? To even start to understand that, we have to look at the most infamous example of all. Okay, look at this. On the left, you've got the ancient swastika. The name itself comes from Sanskrit and basically means conducive to well-being. For millennia, it was a sacred symbol in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Then you look to the right, the Nazi Hakenkreuz. I mean, it's the same fundamental shape, but its meaning is just violently opposite. This single image, side by side, it tells the whole story of how a symbol can be corrupted. So let's start with the stolen symbol. Because to really get the depth of this perversion, you first have to understand just how incredibly common and overwhelmingly positive the swastika used to be. The sheer scope here is pretty mind-blowing. We're not just talking about ancient India. We're talking ancient Greece and Rome. It shows up in Norse mythology, linked to Thor. Several Native American tribes, like the Navajo and Hopi, used it as a good luck charm. And get this, it was even on the shoulder patch of the U.S. Army's 45th Infantry Division before World War II. It was a genuinely global symbol of positivity. And then came 1925. Hitler didn't just grab the symbol, he rebranded it for maximum political effect. By tilting it 45 degrees, he gave it this aggressive, dynamic feel. And the colors, red, white, and black, that was no accident. That was a direct callback to the old German imperial flag, a slap in the face to the new Weimar Republic. It was a completely calculated act of political branding. But the swastika was just the beginning. The Nazi regime started to build its own entire visual language. And the group that really perfected this dark iconography was its most feared branch, the SS. They created symbols that were meant to inspire pure terror. And this is probably the second most recognizable Nazi symbol out there, the infamous SS insignia. What you're actually looking at are two sig runes from an ancient Germanic alphabet, but they're stylized to look like lightning bolts. The design was, in a very twisted way, brilliant. It stood for the initials of the organization, the Schutzstaffel, but it also looked like a battle cry, victory, victory. The Death's Head, or Totenkopf, actually had a long, proud military history in Germany, going all the way back to elite Prussian cavalry in the 1700s. It was a symbol of loyalty till death. The Nazis co-opted that powerful military image and gave it its most sinister meaning ever when it was adopted by the specific SS units that guarded the concentration and extermination camps. And the SS didn't just stop with a couple of runes. They co-opted a whole system of them to symbolize their ideology. The Odal rune, for example, came to mean racial purity and land. The Hagal rune represented unshakable faith in the party. They even came up with their own death rune to use on graves instead of a cross. And as you can see, that dark legacy is still alive and well with modern extremist groups. And this hijacking of runes was all part of a much bigger plan. The idea was to plunder ancient European heritage and twist it into a fake history to justify their so-called Aryan ideology. This is a perfect example, the Wolfsangel, or wolf hook. It started as a literal brand on wolf traps. Then it became a folk symbol to ward off wolves. Later, it became a symbol of peasant revolts and German freedom, a symbol of liberty. So, of course, the Nazis seized on that rebellious history, perverted it, and made it an insignia for their Waffen-SS divisions. And today, it's still being used by neo-Nazi groups. Crosses were also a huge target, being so central to European identity. The Iron Cross, a famous medal for bravery, was defaced by putting a swastika right in the middle. The Celtic Cross, an ancient symbol of Christianity from Ireland, a squared-off version of it is now one of the most common symbols for white supremacy worldwide. And even the ancient Sun Cross, which represents life, had its arms broken by Nazi-adjacent faith groups to fit their mythical narrative. Now this one is maybe the most mystical and strange of them all, the Black Sun. This was a pet project of the head of the SS himself, Heinrich Himmler. He was so obsessed with creating a new SS paganism that he had this massive symbol inlaid into the floor of Wewelsburg Castle, which was supposed to become the SS's spiritual center. Today, a version of it is a major symbol for modern white supremacists. So, this all brings us to the modern day. And while a lot of these historical symbols are definitely still in use, a whole new language of hate has popped up. Codes and emblems designed specifically to hide in plain sight. A huge part of this new language is numeric codes. It's an insider shorthand that looks totally harmless if you don't know the code. For example, if you see the number 14 being used by these groups, it stands for the 14 words, a very famous white supremacist slogan. It's the same logic for the number 18. It's just a simple code for Adolf Hitler. A is the first letter of the alphabet, H is the eighth. So 1 and 8 gives you 18. And probably the most common one you'll see is 88. H is the eighth letter, so 88 stands for HH, short for Hail Hitler. These numbers let extremists signal their beliefs to each other without using a symbol that would get them immediately banned or identified. And the creation of hate symbols never really stops. The Aryan fist is a blatant appropriation of the raised fist from the Black Power movement. It's meant as an insult. The fasces, an old Roman symbol of power, was used by Mussolini, and now it's used by some groups because it flies under the radar more than a swastika. Then you have groups creating their own brands, like the crossed hammers of the Hammerskins, or the chilling logo for the Atomwaffen division, which makes his old SS style with a modern radiation symbol to project pure terror. So I think the main takeaway here is this. A shape, a number, a cross. These things aren't born evil. Their power comes entirely from the meaning that we as people give them. And what this shows is how that meaning can be systematically and deliberately poisoned, turning symbols of life and luck into weapons of pure hate. And that really leaves us with one final, very difficult question. For the billions of people who still see the swastika as a sacred symbol, the fight to redeem it is very real. But for so much of the world, that poison runs incredibly deep. So can a symbol that has been so thoroughly desecrated ever truly be reclaimed by its original meaning? That's something we're thinking about.